once upon a time there was a show called Poet to Poet, and that once upon a time is now because this is the name of the show, and my name is Robert Dunn, and I host it, and our exceptionally special guest today is D.H. Melhem. And then they take over the world. Actually, oh, look at that. Here's one now. Actually, in my neighborhood, they make deliveries in my neighborhood. Oh, that's Harry.
Little people?
Yeah. Oh, that's Harry. Listen, from now on, 2 quarts, okay? Right. Send me a bill. All right. What finally happens when they take over the world, or do they?
Well,
Or am I giving away the
Joseph, I will just tell you that Joseph does develop a relationship with these people who are quite contentious, and they will remind you, I think, of our world. And they have rivalries and jealousies and passion, and Joseph interacts with them on a very human level. They all are acting really on a human level in a very strange way, but it is humanoid. And he becomes very involved with them, and he develops a great attachment for one of them. Her name is Ava.
Ah, yes.
And then things happen. There's a murder, and very dire things, and I think if you read the book, you'll be interested.
And ultimately, Joseph gets to join the Mushroom People's Bowling League, and strikes out, unfortunately. But when I read the book, I was reminded of Fantasia, in a sense that if Fantasia had a conventional plot, when they were doing the Tchaikovsky scene, the Nutcracker with the mushrooms they animated for the Chinese dance, I sort of kept flashing back to that.
Yeah, you can think of Fantasia, you can think of Gulliver's Travels, you can think of a number of stories that this relates to. The problem in getting this book published, it was finally published by River Run Press, it took 30 years for this book to wander around the publishing wilderness and finally get a home,
See,
It had a life, you didn't have to say get a life, but it had to get a home.
See, publishers don't like mushrooms as
Yeah,
well,
what the publishers didn't like was, well, first it was accepted 30 years ago. It was accepted by Harper and Row, and then they changed editors, and the new editor didn't want to take a chance on an unpublished writer. But the problem, and I kept revising it, incidentally, I believe in revision, I revised it 7 times. So, but still, it's interesting that it was originally accepted.
Actually, with your track record, it's hard to imagine being unpublished.
Well, thanks, but that was the first, that was my first encounter.
You've written so many wonderful things, and there's so many more wonderful things yet to write.
Well, yes,
that I can tell, and I want to move on.
Yeah, go ahead.
If we can,
Sure.
because speaking of the book wandering around for 30 years, you've done a little wandering yourself, and you have you've written some fascinating poems about the American heartland.
Thank you. Yes.
I thought we could slip one in.
Oh, of course, of course. As a matter of fact, you published one in another magazine
That
one
other,
time.
that other leading brand,
That
yes.
other leading brand. And I'll be happy to read that. That came about, I'm working on a long series of poems called Country, and it's about the United States, and much of it was written when I went cross-country, when I had a National Endowment for the Humanities Fellowship. And I was supposed to do a book that eventually became Heroism in New Black Poetry. So I traveled cross-country with my son, and then we met my daughter. And one of the places we went to was Detroit. And I was fascinated by the automobile industry in Detroit, and we went to visit the Fisher body plant. And I call this At Livonia. If you would like me to read it, I would.
Oh, I think I could be persuaded.
And as a matter of fact, I think I've never read this aloud, so let's see how it sounds. In the Fisher body soft trim plant, machines cut and stitch a new language. From button area to Thermex presses, to numerical magnetic control cutting and embossing with dielectrics, to overhead conveyors driven by monorail, workers crimp on the hang-on auto panels, send them through stitching and rubber whiskers and waterproofing. In the cutting room, cookie boards and steel wool dies. Through the plant, riding trams, tow motors, high-lows, workers guide sail panels by metal arms into storage towers. The sewing, complex, continuous, mechanical, with tack-down design sewing, chain lock stitching, join sewing, facings. In the Fisher body soft trim plant, everything moves toward pay point.
Ah, yes. All this just to build cars for the mushroom people in play. Remarkable, isn't it? You have another book in this collection devoted to family.
Yes, yes. This was my second book of poems. I have this was brought out from. It was just reissued by Confrontation Magazine Press.
What a lovely photograph on the cover.
Thank you.
Who is this?
That is my mother.
Ah.
That is my mother. She was about 15 or 16 when this photograph was taken in Messina. And Messina, which is in Asia Minor or Turkey, but she was of Lebanese parentage, as my father was. He also had some Greek. His father was Greek. Her father boarded a train one day to get a wonderful job, and he disappeared. He was never heard from again. And so after a year, they declared him legally dead. And I will say, this is a poem sequence. This took me 5 years. I specialize in long-term projects.
Yes.
I think ultimately you have to specialize in just survival, per se.
Job security.
And I will say that I had a dearest mom, not a mommy dearest. And so I was an only child, and we were very close. And the first image is that of my mother as she came to this country. Would you want, shall I read
yes,
the poems?
Yes.
Oh, okay. There, by the rail, my mother at 17. Pale, her thin white arm raised, as in salute to a seagull trailing the ship Homeric, September 1922. Black dress flutters behind her, a silken whispering about her knees, covered with black hose, above black shoes, mourning the year-hardened mystery of her father who disappeared en route to a Turkish town. Thinking of him, of you, grandfather, ever unknown to me, your watch lying on a hotel room night table, and your wallet beside it, a political act. It is warm in Grandma's kitchen. Throughout this, her second apartment in the new world, the fiery steam heat rises with dawn and dinner from the coal stove furnace in the basement, but the kitchen is warmed all day by the cooking and washing. My mother, my grandmother sit at the white enamel kitchen table, kneading dough, shelling peas, measuring pine nuts into the chopped lamb and onions, soaking the crushed wheat for kibbeh, filling dozens of meat pies, stuffing chicken and squash and green peppers and eggplant, rolling stuffed grape leaves and stuffed cabbage like cigars, making dumplings for yogurt soup among cans of sesame oil and boiled butter, peeling scores of potatoes for baked lamb necks and shanks and roast chicken, boiling rice, browning rice and onions, adding rice and tomatoes to large pots of marrow vegetable soup, sitting and chatting over familiar tasks that are done, must be done, will be done every day without respite. My mother, my grandmother at the kitchen table, with me between them on a stool in the corner where I watch and listen, tasting dough and stuffing, rewards for being content to observe and accept with my silence their love. Waiting for them to acknowledge me, I absorb the strange names of relatives and friends I shall never meet, bed this and bed that, houses remote as the house of Atrus, incidents and characters recalled and savored as I anticipate the mention of meaningful names dropping from the flow of Arabic between them, aunts and uncles who live in the house, my mother's sisters and brothers.
And we're going to have to depart from this rather pleasant home life.
Oh.
And I want to thank you, D.H. Melhem, for coming on the Poet to Poet and sharing this cornucopia of marvelous writing. There's something for everybody in the works of D.H. Melhem. And with that in mind, I hope you'll tune in again next week when we have more exciting poets and whatnot on Poet to Poet.
And I thank you very much.